Welcome to Bleav In 76ers with your hosts, former 76ers point guard Eric Snow and two Sixers fanatics in Marcus and Teja Dash. Bleav In 76ers is presented by BetOnline.AG.
BetOnline remains your number one source for all your college basketball betting this season. Get analysis of every play, prop, and point at BetOnline. You'll find the latest odds, bracket contests, team matchups, and game trends at BetOnline. Updated odds for everything from live games, the conference championships, right through the Final Four and championship game. BetOnline is your college basketball headquarters this season. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to sign up and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Be sure to use our promo code BLEAV, that's BLEAV, to receive your bonus. BetOnline.AG, where the game starts. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Bleav In 76ers podcast. I'm Marcus Dash here with legendary 76ers point guard Eric Snow and my brother Teja Dash. Guys, just want to make a special shout out to our guy Eric. It's his birthday week. Eric, happy birthday, buddy.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Man.
I know I was upset I missed the shindig where you and Teja got to celebrate your birthday together. And I was upset I couldn't make that for other obligations I had prior to that.
Yeah, we don't need to share what happened with you. You didn't come, so
you just didn't play in the game, man. That's it.
Yeah, you just didn't play in the game. You stayed at home while we went on the road. So
that's right. You pulled an Embiid, and we went out, closed it out in game 5.
Coach's decision.
Yeah.
But yeah, so obviously the Atlanta closed out the series with Boston. So we're gonna have an over a week of rest. So going into game 1 on Monday, I gotta ask you, Eric, one thing I've seen before we get into the questions, people have been talking about how I think Stephen A might have mentioned it, but we're getting a week off. Celtics had a longer series, only gonna get a couple days off. Is there a little bit of rust that you have to worry about when you have more than 7 days off in the playoffs?
I mean, I've seen it both ways. I've seen it work for teams. I've seen it work against teams. I think it all comes down to if you win that game. Whatever narrative people want to talk about, if you win the game and you win the series, then whatever narrative they have will disappear. So it's really all about winning the game. So I don't. Those guys are professionals, and yeah, you want to keep playing the game, but you also want to get the best medicine you can get, rest. So I think it's a fine line. I mean, I think Boston ended their series. I'm sure that they're excited that they're not playing on Saturday. You know what I'm saying? So I don't think it's a right thing to say. Like, I don't think it's right if you do have a lot of time or if you don't. I think it's that particular team, that particular player, that particular situation. And I don't think that it can happen I think it can happen anyway. I just think sometimes it helps you, sometimes it doesn't.
I also like that we're playing a team that I think the Nets are more relatable to. The Nets are closer to Boston than Atlanta is to us. So it's like we're playing a similar team to when we played, whereas we're nothing like Atlanta. So it's just I do like. At least we're kind of going from a worse version to a better version, whereas they're just playing a completely different team. So they should technically have more growing pains in this series, at least at the beginning.
Yeah, is that anything, Eric? Like when you're playing a team that's like not similar to the other team at all, could that be some kind of growing pains like Teja mentioned? Could that be something that play?
No, I mean, in my experience, it doesn't. I mean, I think I think it's because you move on to it's the styles are different, but you really move on to what are you going to do against the best players. So you may look at the Hawks, and it was more of a perimeter style players and a big that was a pick and roll and lob threat. Whereas now it's, okay, they're going to play through their big. Their big is going to score a lot more points. And they still have scores on at the guard position, but their number one option is now a different look than before. So it's adjustments, but it's also a situation where you still have the same focus as far as, option number one, we got to try to limit. Option two, you just have a different way of approaching it because we have a different guy style. But you're still working on a game plan to execute it and stopping and limiting that number one option.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it will be different if we didn't play them, but I think that even with it being in the same division and we playing 4 times, they're familiar. They're very familiar with us, and they're very familiar with how we play. So while we were playing our series and while they were playing their series, they had someone watching all of our games, breaking down all the film and breaking down all the tapes. So that is yes, the team is just moving. The team and the players are just moving on to the Sixers, but the staff and the personnel has already dissected that series and watched that series and broken it down. So right when that game was over, guys were getting, we got videos. I don't know what they get now. They probably get, something on their iPod or iPad, stuff on their iPad to start looking at situations and developing the game plan. So that
they're already working on the readjustments.
That was already done for them. So I know that, by us sweeping the Nets, it kind of made their job easier because it wasn't going into a game 7 and you had to prepare for both teams. They were pretty much just preparing for us, and they've been doing that this whole time. That guys were breaking down all the film, all the plays, all the sets, the personnel, what a guy does when he does this, all of that is already done. So like I said, when that game was over, you may have a guy that'll say, hey man, I'll take a look at it. Tatum, I'm not saying any of these guys are like this. I'm just saying, I'm giving an example. Tatum may say, hey, I'm good, I'll look at it tomorrow. Smart may say, give it to me over so I can look at it on the plane ride back. And everybody's different, but then the team will get whenever they're going to meet. Sure, they didn't practice, but they meet and they start breaking down the game plan and initiating it, putting it in individual game plan, position game plan, team game plan, and how you're going to execute it. All that will start today. And that's why I've always said the more days in between that you give a team, the more you kind of help them prepare. Whereas if we happen to play tomorrow, how much can they really digest to make that switch in 2 days?
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah,
and Monday, if you're talking about Monday, now all of a sudden they rest and they can digest it. So
yeah, it actually helps them too for us to kind of steamroll our opponent as well.
I mean, they focus on one team and one team only.
Gives them more time to only focus on one. I didn't really think of it.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, it's not the players, but people that are putting it together.
Mm-hmm.
They just put it all on one team. Whereas our staff was probably leaning Boston, and then when they lost game 5, now all of a sudden you got to kind of balance it out a little bit. But that's the work that's done behind the camera.
Mm-hmm. And I Bleav Celtics and Sixers have met the most of any two teams ever in the playoffs. This is kind of just crazy. So, yet another battle upcoming for the two franchises.
Yeah.
So let's get into our first topic here. So obviously we mentioned we had the sweep in the first round, the only sweep of the first round. Then Celtics and Hawks went 6. And the series starts Monday, and seems more so that the main headline, more so than Sixers versus Celtics, is Joel Embiid's injury in his knee. So it's another playoffs and another year we got to focus on an injury with Embiid. Seen multiple different reports. One said he could miss game 1. Another one said that he will play, but with a brace on. So my question to you is, obviously, how does this change the series, and what part of Joel's game will be impacted the most with this injury?
I mean, it changes it drastically if he's injured. I mean, that's what if you go back to first time we started the show, our successes has a lot to do with Joel's health. And if that's limited in any way, it does decrease our chances. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it does decrease our chances if he's limited. So, he's played through injuries before, and I know he's capable of doing that. But the concern is there because, one, we know that it's something, but two, we don't know the severity of it. Like, we really don't know, and we won't know until he starts playing. I think if he's playing and he's himself, then we're going to be like, oh, okay, cool, he can play through it. Like I said, he has had time off, and we will not have any back-to-backs. But one other concern with that is first game's Monday, correct?
Yep.
With a Monday start, you won't have as many days in between games. You won't have that. You may have one game where it's 2 days in between. Yep. And that's where that later start kind of like, okay, like, probably the first 5 games or so will probably be every other day. I haven't even looked at the full schedule yet, but
It is every other day.
For the first 5 games.
Yeah, I believe only one game. There's a two guys.
Yes. So because they're trying to get 2 weekends in, and when that happens, they're trying to get those 2 weekends in. You're looking at the limited days, even though there's no back-to-backs. You still don't have the luxury of them trying to stagger games like they do in that first round. You start on Saturday, they could stretch that series out a little bit. But that Monday start, that was the first thing that came to my mind was, yes, he has more time off, but it may only be one 2-day break. So hopefully this break that he has had with this, by sweeping the Nets, it has given it a chance to calm down, swelling calm down, and build the strength that he needs in order to get it to a point where he can maintain consistency and hopefully not have to miss any time.
Teja?
Yeah, I mean, changes everything. I think as far as what gets impacted, I expect this pick and roll game to go. I guess that part of this game, I would assume, go the most unfazed of all of his. So Joe will be able to set picks and just kind of pick and pop. So his mid range is going to have to be on in the series. I see less banging from him. I see less chase down blocks. I see less twisting, turning, Euro step type guard moves. Defensively, even if he's a half step slower, let's just be nice about it. That's going to make a huge difference because he makes up for a lot of other defensive deficiencies that we have. Paul Reed's going to have to play the way he played for Brooklyn, which is awesome. He probably made himself a lot of money in that series. So let's see if he can keep that going. But yeah, I think if Joe's mid-range game's off, then we're in just massive trouble. Because that's the one part of his game I feel like he could look like his old self. I think everything else will be a big difference. Because I mean, he's not going to just jump up there and try to slam the ball as he normally would. Because that's actually that and blocks would usually get him into trouble as far as injuries go and the way he falls. Those are two of the plays that have the biggest impact on him. So yeah, this is going to have to be the mid-range game for Joel. The mid-range series for Joel.
Yeah, I mean, just thinking, piggybacking and talking about the impact, it's kind of tough to kind of pinpoint one thing until you kind of watch them.
Yeah.
We've heard the injury and we know it's something, but we haven't seen them. So we haven't seen them move. We haven't seen them play. Just from a playing through injuries and playing with an injury, I would say for a guy like him, the biggest concern would probably be his pick and roll defense. Are they going to drop? Are they going to have him up? And if a guy like Tatum is in that pick and roll, how are you going to address it? You know what I'm saying? Like how is he going to be able to? I'm sure he can still protect the rim if he's at the rim. But are you going to extend him? Are you going to have him come up, or are you going to have them guys come off and get clean looks? What can you do differently from that? If he's able to defend that at the same rate, then my concern for defense isn't as much. If Al Horford's in it and he's picking and popping, will he be able to rotate out to that? We'll find out. Because those are the things that they're going to do to try to see where he's at. Run him in transition. Whoever he's defending is going to try to leak out and run out and try to get him running to flatten him, running into pick and rolls. So, I think that's where we're going to have to see where he's at. Offensively, he'll be able to score the basketball. It's just going to come down to, is he going to be able to fight for the position that he's used to maintaining and getting? If they're doubling him and making him more active, does that wear on him? But my concern isn't as high on offense as it is on defense and transition.
Do you think they start out doubling him, or they just see how it goes with Horford playing him straight up first?
I believe that they'll play him straight up on the perimeter. I think that if he's deep, they'll double him. I do believe that on the perimeter, I think they'll double him maybe when he dribbles. I do not see them just running at him on the catch in ISOs like the Brooklyn did.
Yeah.
I do see him playing straight up on the perimeter, even at his spot, 15 and 17 feet out. Now, if he's knocking down every shot, then yes, they'll make an adjustment. But I do not see them. I'm speaking more from what I would do. When I say that, I would not double him on the catch.
They probably want to see how his knee is too.
17, you know what I'm saying? I would try to see what he can do.
Yes.
Starting the game, if he's just killing guys, getting to the paint, getting guys in foul trouble. But even if he's just making jump shots, I'm not necessarily inclined to just go run the guy at it right away. Because it's almost like now we're giving other guys a shot. And I think the one thing the Sixers has been really good at is, even though when they try to give a specific guy the shot, like PJ guys leaves, PJ doesn't necessarily always be in that corner and be the guy shooting. Sometimes he may dive and have somebody else have to play him, or he may set a screen and another guy gets a shot. So we played really, really well off of Joel being double teamed. And I just can't see them just jumping right into doing the same thing that the Nets did. I just don't. I would think that they would try to see something different first.
Yeah.
Yeah. As far as the LCL spread, I think I saw one of those doctors that tweet about, one of the sports doctors online was saying that the reason why you may have seen him fall so much in Game 4 was due to this LCL injury. I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but that's what
that makes sense. I think I mentioned that to Eric on when I saw him. I kind of said because he was losing his footing a lot. Like he couldn't stand.
I understand. I was just like, we were talking about it. I was just like, we just don't know because he does fall a lot.
Yeah, it's hard to gauge that.
Yeah. So it's hard to really gauge, not that he got injured. It's like, is that why he was falling? It's just hard to gauge.
Yeah.
This is something that I know right now in the NFL, right? Smoke screen season. And I was wanting to ask you this as far as with Doc and maybe overplaying or maybe possibly, overplaying or overselling this injury of Embiid's. Do you think there's any benefit to that if that is the case? If maybe Doc saying, I think Doc said 50%, and then Ramona Shelburne saying he's going to play, and she said she's more worried about James Harden's play in this series rather than Embiid's injury. So I'm curious, is there any, would there be any benefit to Doc possibly overplaying or overselling this injury of Embiid's in the series?
In this particular case, being that we got a sweep and it's been, it'll be over a week before we play a game, I don't see the benefit, because if you ask most people, I think most people would assume that he's going to try to play. If he doesn't play, it doesn't matter what smoke screen you sent. That's telling people that it's more serious than we anticipated.
Right.
If he does not play after all of this time. So I don't really think you can really hide this situation, because we're going to find out. We're going to find out.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of being on Monday.
Yep.
So, but I would most people I've spoken with and what I've read, most people seem to think that he's going to play on Monday. I think when Doc came out and said, if the series started, beginning of the series, it looked like he's not going to play the beginning of the series. I do think Doc was being honest, but I think Doc was being honest at that particular time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if Doc comes out and say that today, that's a concern for me.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a concern for me for him to say that a day or two after the game.
Yeah. Any experience with the LCL sprain, Eric? Have you ever had? No. Yeah, I think I read online that with grade 1 sprains with the LCL, which I'm assuming this is a grade 1. I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but I don't really know the exact how the extent of it. But everyone's kind of downplaying it as far as the reporters and stuff. But about 3-week recovery time for a sprain, and he's gonna have a little over a week in this one, even if it is a grade 1 sprain. So it's
3-week recovery doesn't necessarily mean that you can't play.
Mm.
It just means that you're gonna feel this.
Yeah.
For these 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And if you look at that, we're going to get into his injury concerns in the next topic, but if you just look at his history of playoff injuries, this might be kind of one of the, not as bad of all the other injuries he's had before in the playoffs. I would say this is one of the worst ones he's had. So, which is,
we'll see.
We'll see. We'll be able to find
out. I wouldn't say that yet.
Yeah, we'll see.
But okay, yeah, going into diving into Embiid a little bit more. Another injury for him, especially in the playoffs. So my question to you guys, is this another case of bad luck, or is it just what we have to put up with when concerning Embiid now and in the future?
I mean, unfortunately, his first season was on an injury. Unfortunately, injuries have followed him. So it's hard not to say what if, because of the history of injuries, and it has to be concerning because it's a history of it. Unfortunately for Joel and us, a good amount of the history has happened during the playoffs. That's what's disappointing. It says the guy have an injury, but he's good to go the whole playoffs, and you ride it through and see where you at. I would just love to have him good and that not be an issue in the playoffs. But my best run I've been in, with the Sixers, injuries was a concern.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I get it. It happens. I'm sure other teams are going through something too, but no matter what, this team is still going to be judged on how well they do if Joel's on the court.
Yeah.
I think now if he doesn't play, then you can say, okay, well, he didn't play. But if he's on the court, sort of like the Bucks, Giannis was on the court. We all know we could watch it and tell that he was injured, but he was on the court. So you judged on him being on the court, not on him being injured.
No one's going to remember that in 3 years.
You know what I'm saying?
You know? Yeah, and that thing about sucks at play is playing injured is that people think about it for a moment, but like in the third quarter of that game, everyone's like, he's playing, he's fine.
Yeah, he's playing, so he's fine. Yeah,
yeah, he's just playing like shit. He's not a good player anymore. Oh, he's downhill. It's like it always and that really sucks. I mean, it started. I saw that when Harden was playing with that partially torn hamstring for the Nets that year. It's like everyone he was playing on one leg pretty much, and everyone was just judging him as if like he's starting to lose it. It's like, man, that's what he gets for trying to play with like one leg. I mean, come on now. I'm beyond the bad luck excuse. It sucks. It's just bad timing, really, right? But I guess I came up with a few theories of why it happens in the playoffs, but I mean, it doesn't mean anything. The intensity level rises. Everyone's playing harder and plays more minutes. He goes for more blocks, maybe. He sells out more and dives. And the thing is, he plays like that all season. Embiid's not a guy who kind of like rises up in the playoffs. He does this all year round. I mean, he dives for balls with like 3 minutes left in the 20-point game in the fourth quarter. I've seen it. So I look back past couple years. So this year, going for the Cam Johnson block, he hurt his knee. You could see kind of him on that landing. You could see his like knee kind of hyperextend for a quick second. Last year, the torn ligament in the thumb. I don't exactly remember how he got that. Was he trying to block a shot and hit like the rim or a backboard? How did he get that? Do you guys remember that?
I think it might have been rim related.
And he started kind of shaking it afterwards, or did he get caught on somebody or something like that? He was trying to like.
But that was a continuation of something that happened at the end of the regular season, and that just carried over. That injury
just re-injured it.
Playoffs, yeah.
And then in the actual playoffs against them, the Siakam block and his face orbital fracture, right?
Yep.
Okay, so the year before that,
and concussion.
Yes, that's right. And concussion. So we brushed over that one. Year before that, he had the awkward landing on the dunk versus the Wizards, which led to the torn meniscus, right?
Yep.
And then the year before that, it wasn't actually an injury. It was a stomach flu he had in the Toronto series, right?
Yep.
Am I skipping anything? No. Did he have an injury the bubble year? He had an ankle. Oh, Brett Brown said he had an ankle injury. He was battling an ankle injury, is what he said. So it was no like apparent like fall hurt his ankle grabbing it. So he just had like wear and tear. So that's probably the most mild case he's had in the last like 5 years. That one. Because remember he needed an IV in the Toronto series because he was so depleted because he was having that stomach flu and upper respiratory illness.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I just think we deal with it. This is his like kryptonite, right? I mean, he's an amazing player. He does things that no one else does. And this is just the downside of a guy who's 7'1", 300 plus, doing things that a guard does that sometimes, like when guys commentate his games, like, a guy his size shouldn't be able to do that. Well, that's what happens when a guy that size does that all year round. I mean, he's going to be susceptible to freakish twists and turns and injuries, right? On top of the fact that he gets fouled more than anyone else in the NBA. So there's also that. He also gets hacked and hit awkwardly, and flagrants don't get called when he gets smacked in the face going for a dunk. All kinds of stuff happens. So it's something we're going to have to put up with. Is it going to get a lot worse as he gets older? You'd say yes, because his aging and, as you age, you're healing and you're more susceptible to injuries. But I think as he gets older, he'll also stop doing some of this Euro stepping guard. He'll become maybe more of like a backup, Ewing towards the end of his career, more mid-range, more fadeaways, more, fade backs. Maybe that will cut down on the injuries as he starts to age. I don't know, but it's kind of something we're going to have to deal with.
In the injuries that I had, all the injuries that I had was like Freak plays.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't me doing anything that I wasn't going to do during the game.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It wasn't like I was trying to dunk, you know what I'm saying, or do something that I don't normally do. And they all happen. So that's the tough part. It's like, it's just, just what it is.
He's had what, 2 orbital fractures? 2 in his career, right? The Markelle Fultz hitting and colliding with him, and then the Siakam one. That alone is like, man.
That's another playoff one too, because he wore the master in that Celtics series, that first time around.
But he missed. That was a little ways before the playoffs. He missed like 20 games because we actually went on a win streak, I think, without him.
Right.
We played really well without him in that stretch. It was like, oh man, we might be okay. But yeah, that was like I think 20 or so games before the playoffs. But he was out for a long time for that, which makes his quick return in the Toronto coming in the next series against God, who we play the next series again after Toronto? Miami. That's right. How could I forget? See, he was so forgettable. We hardly showed up. I forgot. But yeah, that's what made his quick turnaround for that so incredible. Like they seemed pretty like comparable, those 2 hits, but I guess the Fultz one was worse.
Yeah. I mean, in regards to the LCL sprint, if it is that based on that hyperextension of that play with Cam Johnson, he wasn't doing anything out of the ordinary. That's just like Eric said, it's free. I mean, shit happens.
Yeah.
But hopefully he looks good as new on Monday. Knock on wood. Okay, so now we're going to get into some quick hitters, just like we did with the Net series, just based to preview this Boston Celtics versus 76ers series. So first question kind of ties to that one, but which 76ers player are you most worried about? If it's Embiid, then who's the next player up on that list for you?
I want to say James, but I think James that's like always going to be there each round. You know what I'm saying? Like the James factor. I don't believe it's going to shift ever with him.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say Maxey this series. I'm going to say Maxey this series because, one, we really, really need his scoring. We will need his scoring to be consistent and efficient. But we're really, really going to need perimeter defense because if that's not there, I really don't know what we're going to do. We can play Melton more, because they have some guys on the perimeter that can score.
Deep team too. Yeah.
And I'm not even talking about their top 2 players. I'm talking about, Brogdon can get it going, and White he's playing much better playing off of them, and Smart, as you see, put us up 20 points a game and 20 plus in a closeout game with no plays called for them. So the more we're able to not help and not get in rotations and play one-on-one defense, the better. And I do believe that they'll chase Maxey as far as matchups. I think that they'll chase with their size of their 2 best players. I believe that, maybe not as much as they'll probably chase James in matchups. But the more that Maxey kind of steps up and he's able to defend on his own and then keep his scoring pace or improve it, I think that really, really helps our chances even more. So it's not really as much as a concern. I just think that his role and participation for this particular series, I think it probably needs to increase for us to win.
Yeah, I had Maxey too originally, so I had a couple, but Maxey was one of them. Just to say my Maxey point, I'll pick someone else. I think he's the next most unguardable player we have, the guy who has the potential to go off the most for like 35, 40 plus. I think we're going to need that, right? We're going to need, just like we did against the Nets. Like that one fourth quarter where it was getting stagnant and Joel wasn't looking like himself, who completely lifted him, put him on our back. That Maxey did. I'm not that worried about James. James actually had his second highest points this season against Boston, and he never had a game where he scored under 20 against them. I think it was 20, 21, 26, and 35. So, yeah, James actually played really well against them. Probably because they don't double him. They probably just put Smart on him and say, just take him. I'd say the next guy would be Tobias, because Tobias was instrumental in the Brooklyn series. Without Tobias playing that well, we probably dropped 1, maybe even 2 to them in that series. He was so steady, and he's had 2 clunkers against Boston. He's had 2 good games. So he's had 2 games where he scored 4 and 5 each, and then he's had 2 games where he scored I think 18 and 19. So interesting, 1 point up, 1 point up on each one, 4 and 5 and 18 and 19. So I think Tobias is going to have to step up. Man, he had a game where he had 0 rebounds. How do you have 38 minutes, power forward, you have 0 rebounds? Man, that's incredible.
They keep you on the perimeter, and you guard the guy on the perimeter. That's how.
Yeah. But even like dumb luck will give you 1. I mean, he had another one where he had
also
2.
give you 0.
Yeah, well, he had 1 game where he had 2, 1 game where he had 0. So yeah, it's obviously a game plan they have with him.
Pull him away from he's pulled away from the basket.
Yeah. But I'd say Tobias is my next guy. He needs to be steady as he was in the Brooklyn series. He needs to be aggressive, and if he has a matchup he likes with a smaller guy, just take him. Don't even think about it. And I think he did a great job of that at Brooklyn. And he'll have similar type of size assignments. Brooklyn's not an easy team as far as they can switch. They have a lot of guys that are in that 6'6", 6'8" range. So they have a lot of guys that could have guarded Tobias and done a decent job. Tobias just showed up. So
just I don't mean to cut you off, but I want to ask you before. Who has I haven't really paid attention to the starting lineups. Are they starting Horford and Williams?
In his past series, they started in one of the games. They started. I think they're still leaving Rob Williams on the on a minutes restriction. He's coming off the bench still.
Yeah, they're starting.
They started White. They started White.
Starting. Yeah,
Derek White starting. Yeah.
So okay, I was just saying that'll be interesting because based on what you're saying with Tobias, my perspective is different based on like who they start. You know what I'm saying? If he's going against Al or going against, Brown, like he would probably have to guard Brown.
Yeah, they'll probably put. I mean, Smart will go unless they put Smart on Maxey.
Then Maxey will guard Smart, and they'll put James on Derek.
Yeah. Then Derek White will probably guard. Actually, they want to keep Derek's got a little more. They're both pretty lengthy, actually. They can go either way. White on Harden or White on Maxey. Those aren't bad matchups either way. White's not a bad defender by any means. And then I would personally put Brown on Tobias, and then I put Tatum high.
I think whoever guards. Now that we're on it, I believe whoever guards James is probably whoever is better at switching the pick and roll, and that's probably Smart.
Yeah,
physical, and a switch.
Yep, that's true.
So, but my thing was like, okay, we may have our assignments of who we want to defend. The majority of the time, almost 50% of the time or more, you're going to defend who defends you. Just from a simple transition defense standpoint, you don't have time to cross match. I have no idea how they would play Tobias. Like I said, I would think Brown.
Yeah.
It's interesting. The Brown's listed as the guard. And Tatum's listed as the forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, whoever guarded in those 2 games locked his ass up. So they'll probably whoever had his assignment on those 2 games will probably give it to him again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so following up with that, talking about the Celtics lineup, who do you guys think is the Celtics' most important player versus the Sixers in this series?
Al Horford.
Because of the defense on Joel
and his ability to stretch and shoot three.
Yeah.
If he's pulling Joel out and he's doing a decent job defending, that'll be tough.
That's a good one. I was going to go Derek White just because one of my friends is a really huge Boston fan, and he told me, I think during Game 5, that Derek White's been like one of their most consistent. He was like their Tobias in that series.
He's been playing well. He has been playing well.
He's like White. He's like Tatum's been non-existent during quarters and stretches at a time. He's had big games too, but I've also had like quarters where I'm like, is Tatum even playing tonight? But he's like Derek White's just been so consistent.
Brogdon has helped Derek White play better because he's cut down on some of the responsibilities that came onto White. So that's why I'm saying Al, because of the fact that we don't really know what my defensive concern for Joel was whether he can, inside out and stretching and that's why I'm saying Al. So I think it's kind of related.
Yeah.
Them playing Williams, to me, and somewhat in my opinion, helps Joel. It's from a defensive perspective.
Yes, because he can take some time off on those plays,
and he's not worried about him popping for the three. Maybe pick and roll.
He's cut.
Yeah, he can still defend, and he don't have to worry about him popping, which means he has more ground. But with Al, even if someone is isoing, he's going to be at that 3-point line, and he's going to shoot it.
Yep, he's got the green light for sure. Yeah, just some overall thoughts I may as well put into this area. Some quick stats I found. We only had one game in our 4 games versus Boston this year where we had a 4th double-digit score. So 3 out of the 4, we only had 3 double-digit scores, which is pretty crazy. Them, on the other hand, double-digit scores per game for Boston, 5, 6, 6, and 7. So they double the amount of double-digit scores we had game to game. We were so top-heavy, and only 3 guys would score double figures, and everyone else would score like 8 and 6.
Yeah, and then 2 of the games, didn't Tatum have a double-digit assists in 2 of those games? Because if I remember correctly, he actually didn't do so well scoring the ball against us in like two of the games we played this year.
Yeah, Tatum had some clunkers for sure.
Assists, he was everybody else was rising to the occasion.
He had 9 and 8 in that game. He had 6 and 6 in the other game. He had 6 and 13 in the other game. So he was kind of just contributing everywhere. But my next stat, it plays into that. So Boston shot 41% from 3 against us this season. 15 of those threes were from the bench alone. We shot 35%, only 6 from the bench. So every single time, and I'm sure you guys remember this, they would just be so hot against us. Anyone who shot the ball would hit it. Hauser, Blake Griffin was hitting shots. They just couldn't miss against us. So I'm hoping luck runs out eventually because they just couldn't miss. That's why Tatum didn't need to have a huge game against us, because they had so many guys that were contributing in so many ways. I mean, he never even scored. Let me see. Oh, he did. He had 1 blowout game. The other 3 games, that was the first game of the season, actually. The other 3 games, he had 12, 18, and 19. Brown, on the other hand, 26, 35, and he had 1 clunker. He had 4 points in 1 game. So they're just a really distributed team. They have a lot of guys that can score. We're kind of the opposite.
He didn't play very much, right? Did he play much that game?
Probably not. He had 18 minutes that game. So yeah, that was the one. He didn't play much. But yeah, it's a tale of 2 teams. They're very deep. They're very distributed. All guys can score double figures. We kind of have, a team where like 3 or 4 guys scoring double figures, and the rest kind of contribute and like with a 3-pointer here and there.
Yeah, I saw one of the Sixers Twitter accounts posted if you hold Tatum and Brown to less than 5 threes in each game per game, they'll probably, chances are they're losing. I saw like they had like a losing record when both those guys combined for 5 threes or less in a game. So obviously they're having an off night if they're only making 5 threes between the two of them, because last night I think they had like 10 combined threes between the two of them.
Yeah.
Wild. All right. So okay, talking about we talked about who's the most important player for the Sixers, but who needs to be the unsung hero for the Sixers in this series? I know there's games where Melton stepped up in that first round. Our guy Paul Reed stepped up and showed that he could play with Harden in that backup Embiid role. But who needs to be the unsung hero in this series for the Sixers to win?
I think it's easy to say PJ, but I'm gonna say Niang. He's a guy that, with their ability to go big and small, I think he can be utilized. And I think if he's knocking down shots, because we can break down their defense, and I think that they'll depend on one-on-one a little more. So the more we can break down and he can hit shots, I think it will stretch their defense, because they are more inclined to shrink and help and over doubling and rotating. So the more that we can put a dent into that defense and have more guys knock down shots, I would just kind of lean towards him as a sort of the unsung hero that we kind of need.
Bang, bang.
Yeah, Niang's either had a really good game or just a really, really bad game. Like and when he's bad, he's like unplayable. Like in the Brooklyn series, he had 2 games where he shot pretty well the other game. He didn't shoot any threes, though. In the other game, he didn't shoot at all. It was 13 minutes and no shots. Weird. I'm going to choose – there's a few in this one. I wanted to go McDaniel just because I think he'll be able to put in some good minutes. He's a good guy that will be able to guard, who gives some good minutes to Tatum and Brown. One of the few bigger, lengthier, and fast guys we have. Because Tucker can't be. I mean, he's going to have to play many minutes on those guys, but he's going to be exhausted. And Tucker still needs to have energy to be able to chase those rebounds down. So I'm going to go Paul Reed just because of Embiid's injury and saving minutes here and there. And in case Embiid does have to miss a game, we had so I wanted to ask this earlier. Do you think it also helps that we played one of the games in Brooklyn without Embiid? The last game, like not only for their confidence to say, let's say Embiid can't play game 1. Well, we're like, well, you know what? We just closed a team out in game 4 to win without Embiid. So
I think it helps that they've done that and they've done it during the season. It helps from going in and saying that we won without him, but it's still brand new. It's a series, new team, tough place to play. It's still brand new. It helps that we have that inner confidence that we can do it and have done it without them, but it's still fresh.
Yeah, no, for sure. I gotta say, in Paul Reed's confidence, if you're going to do like a graph throughout the season, it's probably the highest it's been in his career right now. So I love that he's feeling good. We're going to need him to feel good. We need him, even he comes in for 8 to 14 minutes a game, just like hitting hard, playing great defense, hitting good putbacks. I mean, I think Paul Reed's going to have to be really big in those minutes when they spell Embiid.
Yeah. All right, so now we're getting to prediction. Okay, so we're going to start off with game 1 prediction, which I just looked at the spread. The opening line for this is 7.5. They have Boston winning by 7.5 points at home.
Oh man, I hate that. It's terrible.
Well, I mean, they were like an 11.5 point favorite for their closeout game at home when Atlanta beat them. So I mean, spread doesn't mean everything. But yeah, so 7.5 point favorite at home Monday night, or in Boston Monday night. Who do you guys have in game 1 of the series?
I think we get game 2. I don't think we get game 1, but I think we cover.
Boston wins. I think it'll be a close. I think it'll be like final minute, 30 seconds. We'll be down with like 2 possessions. That cover's going to be so close, man. That's going to come down to how much we try to foul them to get back in the game at the end of the game. If they keep hitting free throws to go up by a lot, I think they win right on that mark. I think they win by like 7 or 8.
All right.
So, yeah, I think we recover, but yeah. That we wouldn't. Sorry. Yeah,
So, but both you guys have potentially, if we lose game one, we win game two. Is that what you guys are saying?
That's what I would say. Yes.
I need to see how Embiid looks, man.
Well,
I mean, I'm saying it based on him being Joel. Yeah.
Look like a close game, and he plays all game. He's going to play in game two. Yeah, I think. I mean, Boston. Hey, they lost to Atlanta at Boston, right? I mean, there's no reason why we can't steal one from them. Yeah, I'd say good bets for us to come back for game two and win.
Yeah. Okay, so then we're gonna go with the series prediction. I'm looking at the betting line for that. Vegas has Celtics as -3,
-220, -310,
-310 series favorites. We are +250 underdogs. So you put 100 on that, you win back 250 for that. So not bad. But who do you guys have in the series, and how many games do you have it going?
Sixers in 6. My hope, fingers crossed.
Man, so tough. Those lines, man, they're so brutal. And they're begging you to take us with +250. Don't you think so?
I don't know. I think people are up. I think people are thinking the Embiid's injuries that bad that's why everyone's kind of going with Boston.
Yeah, that's such a weird X factor. He's used to playing injured. This is such a big season. They have to. I mean, they're going to leave it all on the floor. I'm going to go us in 7.
Damn, Josh, you're giving me flashbacks of the Game 7 of the 2012 season.
My confidence level is not high in that pick, though. I will say that's my heart getting some words.
That makes 2 of us.
You chose 6. You gave yourself a
because I can't see us winning the 7 in Boston.
Yeah, I know.
That's historically speaking.
That's true. Hey, we came close to that 2012 game, but Rondo hit like 3 bank shot threes at the end of that game. That was ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, confidence level a lot high. I just Embiid.
It's more hope than anything for me.
Yeah. I just feel like when I chose 7, it's good logic that you had that we wouldn't be able to win in Boston in Game 7. I just think we're gonna need to take it all the way to the end, the limit, to be able to beat them.
Yeah, I feel like there's just more pressure on us, whether it's outside noise. I don't know if players listen to that stuff or not, but I feel like we just have more pressure on us with the, if like Harden's possibly gone, Doc can be gone, Moore could possibly be gone. I don't know, but I think
they have similar ones too. Their coach might be gone. Jaylen Brown might be gone. They said, and they've kissed that trophy numerous times and haven't closed the deal. If anyone's got championship pressure, it should be them.
It should be them. You're right.
Got out of the second round. What the hell do we know? Like championship? I mean, playoffs. I mean, like it's. They're the ones that have gotten up there a bunch of times and couldn't close a deal, man. I think they have just as much pressure, if not more, than we do.
It should be, but that's never the narrative, though. It's always the Sixers have to blow it up
because it's the individuals. I think as a team, as that group goes, I think they have more pressure. But when you individualize it, Embiid, multiple MVP winner probably this year, 2-time runner-up, nothing to show for it. Harden, a lifetime of scoring admiration, nothing to show for it. Doc, lifetime choke card, except for the one Boston ring, hasn't shown it since. So it's like individually we kill them in pressure, but as a group, I'd say they have more pressure.
Eric, do you agree with that?
I wouldn't necessarily say they have more. I would say it's probably a good shared amount, because I think the pressure is coming for both teams. I think the pressure that we have is coming from a perspective of not all being Sixer pressure. I think a lot of James pressure comes from Houston, but that pressure is still there.
That's true.
I think that from Boston, a conference finals last year, coaching change, possible Brown free agency. That's different too. I mean, so I think that both teams have a high intense amount of pressure. And I think one thing that we didn't mention, that I think has brought an intense amount of pressure to both teams is both teams could arguably have home court advantage for the rest of the playoffs.
Very true.
So now that's what's hard to happen. That's hard to get. And you could possibly be facing that and looking at that with a series win in this particular case. So that has just added, and I think that's on both teams. So that's why I think it's the shared pressure that may not always look the same, but I think is very level for the two teams.
A lot of people are calling this the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah, very level. And that's it's fair to say that, based on how things has played out thus far.
Since we were talking about that, on the other side of the bracket, who do you guys have winning that series? Knicks or Heat? And how many games?
I think New York pulls it out. Yeah, I think New York pulls it out. Being that Randall was healthy. If he's back and healthy.
Yeah, that's a huge one. If Randall's out, I think Heat, because then it levels the playing field with them losing Hero and Oladipo.
I just think with New York, I think they're going to be a tough out at home. They're playing really well. Jalen Brunson is a winner.
They're a lot deeper too, man.
He's tough, and he's a winner.
Yeah.
And Hero being out, I think that's going to catch him. It's made him better defensively. But I think that it's going to, I think it'll catch him.
And Butler's soaked up a lot of that pressure and a lot of that scoring and a lot of the playmaking, but
yeah, it's just
a lot of deep runs every year, man.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You look at Jimmy. Jimmy's played great in the playoffs, but maintaining that every series is tougher. It's tough.
And I don't know what the hell happened to Cavaliers defense. They were a top 5 defense in the league this year, but so
bad matchup.
Yeah. So I actually say I probably say New York, even though I look at it and I favor Heat at first, but I think as it goes along, they'll look like a different Heat team. He can't sustain that all series being the only guy. There's no other guy to really do it. Bam's not really a scorer. Like Hero is the only guy who could. Hero in a lot of ways is like their Maxey, a guy who can like go off like 30 plus, but you can't do that.
But I also think Tibbs will make an adjustment, unlike Bud and his staff. Not going to play drop the whole game, the whole season.
Yeah.
Do something different.
Different conversation. Speaking of pressure, he's going through it right now too.
I'm just saying, do something different. I believe that Tibbs will try some different things.
Did you think that was a push off the end of that game for the Butler?
He pushed, but it wasn't called, so he can't review it. Yeah. But they also had a timeout.
You think it was a mistake not to keep Brook Lopez out there guarding the rim?
My thing is, if I'm talking about that, I would have had Brook on the ball and Giannis at the rim.
Yeah. Yep.
With 2 seconds left, I mean, that was,
man,
got to have a bigger guy at the rim. But you also put in guys in the game that weren't in the game.
Yeah.
Huntington wasn't playing. He wasn't in the game like that.
He wouldn't be able to push off Lopez or Giannis right there. I'll tell you that much. It's crazy, man.
Yeah, it was some other stuff, adjustments they didn't make that happened the previous game. So that's another issue.
But yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see the Mitchell Robinson, because Robinson, I don't think he'll be able to bang against Bam like the way he did to Cleveland's bigs. I mean, he was botting those guys, and it showed that Mobley and Jared Allen needs to get in the weight room this offseason.
I mean, it's just different. Those guys aren't getting the ball and getting plays and run the offense through. I don't think Mitchell was doing anything different. Bam was just a different player. Right now, Bam's better than those guys.
Yeah,
that's it. I mean, not bigger, but he's a better basketball player right now. That's what I said. It's just a matchup. We'll see.
Yeah.
He might be their most important player, actually, Mitchell. As far as like defense and offense, what he has to do on the court. Yeah. If he shuts down Bam, then all they have is Butler.
Well, Strus does go off like 20 his 24 spot is 8-3 spot.
Yeah, he's good for a go-off game series, I guess.
Yeah. All right, well, that does it for us. We'll see you guys Tuesday as we discuss Game 1 and also preview Game 2 of the Sixers and Boston Celtics series. All right, fellas. Have a good weekend, everybody.
All right, take it easy.
Yes.